Hey, big hello from Portland, Oregon. Welcome to another episode of B2B Marketing and More. And in this specific episode, I want to talk about LinkedIn marketing and blog. And I have a very, very special guest, Steve Kearns. He is the head of blog and social media marketing for LinkedIn Marketing Solution. Steve, welcome to my show.
Thank you so much for having me, Pam. I'm so excited to be here today.
So Steve, I know that your title is the head of a blog and social media marketing. So can you tell us what do you do actually for LinkedIn? Obviously it's a blog and social media, but I think it's a little bit more than that. So can you elaborate?
Long story short, one of the best or common questions that I get is how does LinkedIn make money? I get it from friends, I get it from family, I get it from even some folk who work in the B2B marketing space. The primary way that LinkedIn makes money is through our native advertising solutions.
Got it.
Which we call LinkedIn Marketing Solutions. So that is our primary revenue stream at LinkedIn, in addition to a number of other software as a service or SaaS businesses like LinkedIn Recruiter, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and LinkedIn Learning. But again, primary mode of revenue generation is through our native advertising programs. And that is the line of business or revenue stream that my team supports.
Because you're writing blog, are you writing paid blog or it's basically organic blogs that talking about LinkedIn's products?
Organic blogs primarily, in addition to social media communications across owned channels, and then also any web content marketing program. So that includes any top of funnel programs that show up across our LinkedIn Marketing Solutions microsite. My team is really there to sit across those three functions. So again, blog, social media marketing, and web content marketing to create top of funnel and middle of funnel content marketing programs that are really priming the pump for sales conversations, when folks are talking to our reps on the phones in terms of why they should be building their brand on LinkedIn, but then also for advertisers' own learning journeys. So as people are figuring out how to advertise on LinkedIn, my team's primary goal is to make sure that they have the tools and the resources through our blog, our social media properties, through our web properties as well. They have the resources to be able to do that and to be able to succeed with LinkedIn advertising.
So I was did a little research before I interview you. And I know you just completed a massive project, which is consolidating like several regional marketing blogs to kind of like global marketing solution destination. Can you tell us the story behind it? Why do you guys decided to centralize? And also, how do you go about doing the consolidation? Because I was in the global world for a long period of time, and it's very, very hard trying to balance that headquarters needs versus the geography's needs. And I totally understand a lot of time at the geo level, they want their content that's specifically tailored for the cultural and language differences. So in terms of consolidation, how do you go about it and how do you balance that?
When I first took over our blog properties on behalf of LinkedIn Marketing Solutions, this was about a year and a half ago, we had 4 different blog properties on behalf of our marketing solutions business. So we had a North American blog, we had a UK English blog, we had a French blog, and we had a German blog.
Oh, wow.
Not really built with any rhyme or reason, built essentially based on the demand and the priority audiences our business had.
It's like grown organically.
Exactly. There's beauty in that at the time because it allows companies to scale and flex and meet the needs of their audiences. But over time, we realized is as it's a funny phrase that we'll say a lot at LinkedIn is what got us here won't get us there.
I like that statement.
It's something that our executives say all the time when we think about, okay, great, this worked for the last 5 years, but now we actually want to create a centralized experience for our advertisers to understand how they can best use LinkedIn and where they go for anything from thought leadership to, activation-focused content. So we had to take those 4 blogs. They were all hosted on different platforms in different languages and roll them up into one global blog. So I remember when my boss took me through this project and said, "Hey, Steve, you're going to be the one to do this." I was like, "No, thank you. I don't want this. Not
no,
for
thank
me."
you. I'm busy enough.
Exactly.
Why do I have to do that?
Exactly. And this is something that we kicked down the road for years. We knew it's something that had to happen. We knew it was something that was going to be a huge value add for our audiences, but it was such a technical challenge. We wanted to make sure that we had the right people in place to do this. We had the right resources to do it.
How do you do the migration? And what are some of the big steps that you took to make it happen? And how long did it take to actually eventually to the point like you can say, you know what? I won this battle, or this is like considered done?
I would say end to end, the project took about between 6 and 9 months. So 6 months for the actual execution runway, 9 months for the end to end planning to optimization to
Yeah.
reporting on success. To think about what were the main components of this project, again, when I first approached it, it seemed like an insurmountable challenge trying
Daunting
to
task, a
connect.
absolutely daunting task.
Exactly. Like, how do we connect all of these disparate audiences, different content pillars, content strategies, et cetera? And what we got down to was, well, hey, this actually gives us a really unique opportunity to be able to reset the direction of our content strategy, reset the direction of our content program and our audience offering. So we did a couple of things. The first thing we did was a technical and content audit. So we looked at all, I want to say it was 6,000 posts.
Like a 4 different blog sites, right? Yeah,
Exactly. And we wanted to look for, okay, number one, what is the traffic data?
definitely.
What posts are performing the best? What is not performing well? Are there any core themes we can identify?
I agree. Yeah.
People have been creating content across a number of different themes, across a number of different regions for years. Like, what are the common threads that we can find in terms of what could carry over to our next strategy? Those components, we also looked at what is performing from an SEO perspective. We wanted to make sure that we were not jeopardizing our.
SEO performance, yes. So you don't kill your SEO score, if you will. Yeah.
Exactly. So, this audit took, I would say, took about 1 to 2 months. And that was just looking at traffic data.
For 6,000 blog posts and then you do a content audit in about 8 weeks, I would say that's a huge success. And that's
Yeah.
actually moving pretty fast.
Yeah. It was a very, very fast experience. I would say we definitely did it with some partners. So we were able to bring on someone to my team who was an expert in SEO and web marketing, who was able to spend 40 hours a week dedicated specifically to this project. And we also brought in an agency. So we worked specifically with Top Rank Marketing.
Yeah.
And the team over there is wonderful to make sure we had the right tools in place to do that analysis and the right heads in the room, the number of hours we needed to get that across the finish line. So it was certainly a group effort.
May I ask one more question about the 6,000 blog posts? You probably kill quite a bit of them. What is the percentage of the blog posts you end up keeping?
Killed about 60% of our blog posts and kept about 40%.
And out of that 40%, how many categories did you end up creating?
We started with about 100 different topics. And those were actually externally facing topic tags. So when like a marketer would go visit our blog, they would see 100 different things, which is a terrible experience.
That's terrible, right? You need to actually have build a taxonomy to actually solve that problem.
So where we landed were 4 key pillars. And within those 4 key pillars, at the maximum 21 different tags that were all focused on like several different lenses. So the first lens was LinkedIn advertising.
Exactly. That's bread and butter, right?
Yep.
So you want to make sure you have one pillar focus on that. That makes a lot of sense to
Yep.
me.
Exactly. And we looked at verticals. So what are the different verticals that are business services where people would need to, be delivered bespoke content? So, healthcare, financial services, technology, marketing, et cetera, to where, again, we were going to need dedicated places for those marketers to go to learn about what's relevant to LinkedIn advertising and what's relevant in their industry. And then we also looked at macro trends. That was sort of the other lens that we looked at. What are the trends going on in the world of work that we have proprietary data on that we can share with you? What about diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Yeah.
What about the jobs landscape for marketers? Looking at the different things that we can comment on at a thought leadership level that don't necessarily have to do with our product and don't necessarily have to do with a vertical, but they have to do with, hey, our target audience are marketers.
It's adjacency. Yeah.
What's interesting is we were really worried about the backlash we were going to get when we sunsetted 60% of our content.
Internally, that you were very concerned about people is gonna like, you know what, this is not acceptable, and you are killing the content, you are killing SEO, and so. But what was the reaction?
The threshold we used was very, very minimal.
Honestly, I think you got very minimal pushback. Had several reasons. Can I just analyze that whole
Yeah, please.
situation? First of all, you did extensive audit, so people understand you did that. And the second thing is you were able to identify pillars that people can resonate.
Yep.
And once you have pillar identified and everybody agree with that, They were like, okay, so anything that doesn't fit into any of those pillars, you should kill it. That's a natural thing. So I think once they agree on pillars, everything else is a very, very natural path.
Absolutely.
And then third, I really like that you identify tagging the keywords, if you will, or the editorial topics for each pillar. I like that a lot. I think that's a very structured way of doing it. And that makes a lot of sense to me. And you mentioned the four pillars. One is LinkedIn advertising, and then the other one is vertical by industry. And then third one is thought leadership or marketing trends type of topic. What's the fourth one by any chance?
And I would say the fourth is what we are calling pain point specific. In the same way that if you look at our products, you can say, I want to use LinkedIn sponsored content. I want to use LinkedIn pages. I want to use, LinkedIn lead gen forms. There's
Yeah.
also, I would say, like an objective based thought process or journey that a customer, someone who visits our blog can take. Well, it's actually two things. It's your marketing function and the marketing objective. So do you want to build brand awareness? Do you want to drive demand and generate more leads? Do you want to host an event, for example? Or looking at your profession, are you a social media marketer? Are you a content marketer? Are you a demand generation marketer? So making sure that for every vertical that our customers sit in, for every function that our customers sit in, for every pain point they could have, and every LinkedIn product that they look at, we have an answer and we have a content resource for them to go visit. And that was the full stop of the project. We didn't go beyond that because we said, hey, as a marketing blog that is owned by LinkedIn, we actually don't have anything else to talk about. We shouldn't be
Yeah.
talking about anything else. That gives us plenty of runway to be able to create content. Again, 21 dedicated topics.
When you say 21 dedicated topic, is 21 per pillar or is 21 total?
21 total. So 4 are the what sits across.
Okay,
Yes.
that makes a lot of sense. I was like 21 times 4. That's actually a lot.
Yeah, so it's only a few within each pillar.
Do you slice and dice the information by languages as well?
I was under the assumption when we first started this journey that most of localization from a language perspective was done via AI, and you could just flip a switch and all of a sudden your blog was going to be translated into Spanish, French, and that is not the case.
Not the case.
No.
I am so happy you said that. I'm so happy you said that. Because I talk about artificial intelligence and multiple different keynotes, and I try to emphasize and tell everybody, the current stage of AI is not taking your jobs away. The current AI technology is really trying to help you, if nothing else, get your first draft ready, especially from writing's perspective.
Right.
Eventually, maybe the AI will be so sophisticated that will replace us, but that's so way down the road. But in the meantime, or in the foreseeable future, next 4 or 5 years, it's really just to help you out.
Right. 100%.
And it's not like you can take what AI created and then code it down and then publish it automatically. That doesn't work.
We work on global teams at LinkedIn. Being a marketer who was born and raised in the United States, I think we always have this very North American and American centric view.
Yeah, or US-centric type of view, yes.
Exactly. So this was a really interesting project in that, I went into it thinking you could just flip a switch and you would have a blog in 6 different languages. And what I learned was you actually have to have the entire site translated. Maybe you can get the first step through via AI, but then you have to get it QA'd and checked by a native speaker.
Music in my ears.
What the recommendation came out to was, well, if you want to have a site that's dynamic in 6 different languages or 4 different languages, you have to have this wildly sophisticated resourcing mix to be able to pull that off and pull that off well. So we said, we are actually not ready to offer that. We cannot offer that because we don't have the headcount, we don't have the
budget, and also
budget,
people to maintain
sophistication.
it or build a
Exactly.
model to optimize it.
Exactly.
It's very expensive. Yeah.
Right. And we don't even have the mandate when it comes to from a business or revenue perspective to say, all right, we're going to put 10 people against this so they can maintain a blog in 6 different languages. So what we said was instead, we're going to create a global English blog. So we're going to take that UK English blog and the North American English blog. We're going to merge those two. And then we're going to create content hubs, which basically look exactly the same as our blogs. They're hosted on the same platform. We're going to create content hubs that are localized specific to languages.
For that, do you actually have a local team manage it, or
Yes.
that's done by the central? Yeah,
Yes.
that makes sense.
So what we used to have is it used to be this very strange partnership between my team and their team where,
Between global and local.
where we have no language skills. We're just like the gatekeepers for the channel. What we did instead is instead of having a French blog and a German blog, we had a French content hub and a German content hub. So when you were to remove the word blog, you're actually kind of removing that expectation of, okay, we need a newsletter. We need a publishing cadence.
You have much broader and a wider range of content formats, not just the
Exactly.
blog by itself or just a
Exactly.
PDF. Yeah.
By doing that, what it allowed us to do is we said, okay, right now we only have content that's localized in French and German, but there was also interest from our Spanish and our Brazilian and Latin American teams to localize in Spanish and Portuguese. So we said, okay, we actually have a model for you now where you can maintain your own content hub. It looks exactly like a blog, but there is no requirement around publishing. If you want to publish once a month relative to the needs of your market,
You can. Yeah.
we don't want to stymie you from doing what you need to do in your market, but we also want to make sure that if we're saying this is a blog from LinkedIn, that has a certain promise associated with it. This has a publishing cadence, which is 5 times a week, has a newsletter. It has a find content strategy around it, around, what is the promise that we are delivering to our advertisers or the value we're delivering to our advertisers.
When you say content hub, does that mean that the majority of content being created in a headquarters level, and then the local content hub can pick and choose which one they want to use and localize? Is that somehow the approach that you are going after? Yeah.
That's the majority, but then there's a second subset of content that looks at entirely like regionally driven initiatives. So for example, things that like we wouldn't do event coverage posts in region,
Yes, that would be their job. Yeah, exactly.
business moments that matter in Germany that would not matter in the United States. Like those are things where they will take the lead and say, "Hey, like you don't even need to work with our team."
We will do it ourselves. We know our regions well. So can I also ask one more question?
Yeah.
My experience working with a global team, along with my experience engaging with enterprises as my consulting projects. And what I have noticed, and including myself when I was in the corporate world, is majority of the content that's created, say at HQ level, they can naturally flow down to the regional level.
Mhm.
But a lot of time, the regional specific content, and I know that multiple different regions I work with in the past, they will push their content to HQ and try to scale that to a different region. I
Yep.
found that very difficult to do. Do you run into that issue as well?
Yes, we definitely do. I mean, I think it's challenging when, and we haven't cracked the code yet on how to get this right.
I don't think anybody did. I'm not kidding. And
No,
I work with many global enterprises.
Yeah.
It's like, it's always one way street come down to the content distribution to a
Right.
regional level.
Right.
I try to push some of the content regional level up to the global level. And
Yep.
then from there to scale down to a different region. I found that very difficult to
Yeah.
do.
And I think the only thing we've done that's been successful in trying to keep that two-way street, like you were talking about, Pam, is aligning on what core themes and content pillars are going to be. So we said, hey, this year we're going to talk about two things. We're going to talk about brand trust, and we are going to talk about professional identity. Those two topics are what we're going to talk about. Everything that falls within there is fair game. Once we get there and once we have that alignment on a global level, it's very easy to say, all right, APAC team or Latin America team or EMEA
Yeah.
team, you take this project and you run on it, you lead on it, and
Yeah.
pull us in when you're ready to go global. Then we know we're all singing from the same hymn sheet, so to speak, and that the content is going to be globally resonant.
So even with that, that guidance or the guardrail has been set up by the headquarter team. Does that make
Yes.
sense?
Mm-hmm.
The headquarter teams will identify 2 or 3 themes, and that's to make sure that's common across all region. What I have done in the past is some of the event content. For example, like when I was working with China, sometimes they have a budget to pull a very heavyweight speaker. Either somebody is very well known, like the Alibaba CEO,
Right.
Jack Ma, for example, ex CEO, and then they have an interview and they have a great discussion, and that kind of information because he's so well known, and it's very easy to pull that information from the content hub in China and then scale that across to different regions. But I like your approach in terms of identify a couple of themes. Preferably is a thought leadership, and it's a common thing that can apply across regions. If they take the lead, of course, you can take some of that content and upscale at a global level and then scale that to other regions. I like that a lot. Very smart.
It's definitely an ongoing, I would say, conversation
Yeah.
because, at the end of the day, the whole idea of one size fits all is very tough. So it's the question of how do you create enough of a strategy that is malleable so that it can translate across different regions of the world where, you look at like economic climates, political climate, with the public health crisis we have going on.
Yeah.
All of that informs how your marketing needs to show up and how you can handle your messaging strategy, what you should say as a brand, especially a brand the size of LinkedIn. We also want to make sure to leave enough space that, the regional experts can, be experts in their market and lead messaging strategies that are going to make sense to their audiences versus, what may resonate with a marketer in New York City that may not make a ton of sense to a marketer in Singapore.
I hear you. So, sounds like you got a lot of things right when you are doing that migration and leading the effort. Now, looking back, what are the one or two things that you look back and say, you know what, if I had to do this over again, I would do it completely differently?
I would say pre and post migration metrics.
Oh, yeah.
So, one of the challenges we have, especially at a large company, but I think this happens across any sector or
Yeah.
size of company, is that when we migrated from one platform to another, that then throws off the tracking on everything. You essentially lose visibility for a given period of time.
Yes, I 100% agree. And also, you have to do this 301 redirecting and all that stuff. It's incredibly tedious, incredibly tactical.
So I would say, one of the things we've recently discovered is that a lot of the tracking mechanisms that we used to employ are no longer working and have to be rebuilt.
Yeah.
So, I think there was something where there was the physical appearance of the blog, which went pretty flawlessly. And then there's the behind the scenes, which again, it's hard because we know as marketers that metrics are very, very important. And those are going to be things we look at quarter over quarter, year over year, et cetera. But we tended to give priority to the visual appearance, the user experience of the blog, because at the end of the day, if that's a mess, it doesn't matter what we're tracking.
It doesn't matter, and perception is reality anyway, right?
Exactly. So I think what we could have done a better job of is when the migration happened, we said, boom, okay, we're done. The new platform is live. It's a success. It looks beautiful. People are really happy with the new experience. Where we should have started asking questions a little bit earlier, like even before we actually flipped the switch, was, okay, well, what's going to happen when we flip that switch?
On the performance, we're probably going to see a dip. How long? And also all the tracking that was in place. What is the impact? Yeah, I hear you.
And then, especially at a big company, the question is around, like, how do you manage those expectations? Because once you learn
So
about
true.
that, it's like,
When it has a big dip. And the
exactly.
manager was like, what's going on? I don't understand.
Exactly. Now we are in the process of rebuilding those tracking infrastructure, which is definitely time consuming. I would say you could have spent some more time in advance thinking about how we were going to manage that.
I hear you loud and clear, but we don't know what we don't know.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like all of us that have been doing this for a long time, even though I managed data migration for my own blogs at least 4 times. 4 times I redid my website. 4 times.
Wow.
Not including the first time, but just redoing it 4 times. And every single time, I always have a problem in terms of tracking. The tracking, no matter what I'm trying to do, no matter the web developers, how much time they spend on it, it's always just because it's technology and there's so much data. And when you do that migration, there's always glitches. There's not much you can do about it. I come to
Right.
realize they are just glitches. Every time you do a technical migration like that, you learn something. That's because we are not technicals. But now
Yeah.
you go through it one more time. Next time you do it, you're like, okay, back end, all that nitty gritty details. We
Right.
just need to make sure that everything is tied up, right?
Exactly.
It's kind of like a design for a machines. We know what that will look like and we know the functionality of machines, but we don't design it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then once you are in the trenches of designing it, you will not know like how everything connected together.
Yeah.
I hear you loud and clear, but I still think you should pat yourself,
Thank
on your
you.
shoulders and basically say you did a great job.
Thank you.
I know how hard it is. I help my clients do data migration from time to time. I always tell them, You know what? We're going to do this 2 or 3 times. The first time is going to be a disaster. Everybody just expect that, okay? Just expect that.
Exactly. And we did it about 3 times.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. For my data migration, it was never successful ever the first time.
No.
Never. It's as simple as migrating my contact list. I cannot even get that right the first time. It has to be like second or third time. Not mentioning you are doing like 60% of 6,000. That's what? 3,000 posts. Yep. Exactly. I want people who listen to understand that if you ever do any data migration, you have to manage it. You have to manage it. You have to manage the expectation and also expect that you have to do it multiple times.
100%.
Thank you for sharing the whole experience with us. That's fantastic. I love it.
Never miss an episode of B2B Marketing and More by following us here on YouTube and leave a comment while you're at it. You can also find episodes wherever you get your podcasts.